I remember reading a study where researchers realized that female birds of a certain species preferred males with a darker chest, so they created what they literally called a super hot male by catching a male and coloring his chest with a marker. They then ran DNA tests on the eggs in the area. Previously, when the researchers had run these tests, they found a certain amount of infidelity was common for these birds. Somewhere around 10% of eggs were fathered by males who were not the primary mates of females. After the advent of the super hot male, however, stuff got crazy in the bird world. Infidelity skyrocketed, with upwards of 25% of all eggs in the area being fathered by this specific male. Furthermore, his mate's eggs were 100% his. This is just insane to me. Just imagine you're living your bird life when suddenly somebody scribbles on Dave's chest and the ladies can't stop throwing themselves at them. It's stupid that we theoretically can wreak this kind of havoc on an ecosystem. Oh, also, a girl in my class found out that I illustrate and asked if she could commission me for a pet portrait. So I said, sorry, I don't do commissions, but I can give you a free ink sketch. And then the next class, I showed up with the sketch. And she said, I love this, so why don't you do commissions? I can't commission you? And I said, sorry, just a bit busy. And then she went to grab something from her bag and gave it to me and said, here's a crystal charged under the full moon. And I didn't know what to say. So I was just like, oh, okay, thanks, thank you. You completed a side quest. I was teaching kids today and they got fixated on the usual "are they dead now" question when I was talking about historical figures. So I was just like, yes, they're dead now. Everyone who was alive in the 1800s is dead now. And then one kid was like, except for you. Okay, I must clear this up more concretely since this has gone far beyond my circle of folks who have the context of why this is actually funny. Because there are thousands of people here who are like, kids are so rude, kids are so evil, I hate kids. When kids are little humans and they're learning and they should be treated as little humans who are learning. Don't be a jerk to kids. Adults who are buttheads to kids is such a bad look, and kids remember that crap. This particular child was being so earnest, and except for you was said not as an insult, but like, oh, you're the last one left. I dress like this, everyone. I don't know if I told the full story on here, but I signed up for a research study where they were testing a new medicine, and it was supposed to be up to 5 injections, increasing the dose to see what people could tolerate. I got the first dose and almost immediately fainted. They had to call in a whole medical team, and it was a huge friggin' deal. I was kicked out of the study and got a phone call later, where they were supposed to tell me what the medicine was, so I could avoid it in the future. They told me it was saline water, a placebo. I fainted from the placebo effect. Anyway, it's been a few months, and I just got an email from the same department asking me to be a research participant in a new study, testing the effects of open-label placebo. Open-label placebo is when the subjects and the researchers all know it's a placebo. They're testing the power of my mind, my power to imagine anything. I like to think that they chose me for this specifically based on their past experience with me. Get the guy who fainted like a little wimpy boy from saline water. Anyway, I just submitted all my info and I'm looking forward to getting started. While doing uni work recently, I just left serial killer documentaries on in the background, and I'm tired of how often people are like, wow, what goes on in the complex mind of a killer? Fascinating, I love them! Cause like 99% of the time it's just, I hate women, and it's not that deep. And they're usually not that brilliant and careful either. 99% of the time, the police are just incompetent. Ted Bundy literally jumped out a window and escaped police custody because they weren't watching him. A victim literally escaped Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment naked with a hole drilled in his head and unable to speak, but police let Dahmer take him back to his apartment like everything was okay. Last month, I made a new coworker repeatedly guess what astrology sign I was by simply refusing to cooperate until my birthday, and repeatedly telling him I don't want to be categorized by those kinds of assumptions. Just get to know me as a person and not one of like 12 categories. And he kept going, that's such an Aries thing to say. I know these things, I can always tell, because I'm a really intuitive Cancer. Maybe you're a Capricorn because you're being so argumentative, etc., etc. He would not drop it, and kept coming at me from all different angles to try and guess what sign I actually was, no matter how many times I told him that I wanted to opt out of the whole game. Finally, he went off on a tangent about his own incredible powers of empathy and deduction, and how he was never wrong because he was a moon cusp double backflip whatever the frig Cancer. They gave him special powers, etc., etc., and mentioned his particular birthday, and I started laughing because holy crap. I said, okay, alright, you got me. I'll play ball. You get one last chance to guess my friggin' sign. Well, he guessed twice and struck out both times. Guessed one more time, even more confidently, and incorrectly, and I pulled out my ID and handed it over. Me and Mr. Intuitive Never Miss Deluxe Cancer Donkey had the exact same 4th of July birthday. Makes me laugh when someone tries to sell a horror thing by going, this would give H.P. Lovecraft nightmares, as if H.P. Lovecraft wasn't the kind of man whose nightmares were probably stuff like seasoned food, or a woman wearing a man's hat, or sharing an elevator with an Irishman. This would give H.P. Lovecraft nightmares. Encanto. Something that gave H.P. Lovecraft nightmares is the work of my favorite artist. In At the Mountains of Madness, he specifically mentions the strange and disturbing Asian paintings of Nicholas Roerich. This is what Roerich's paintings look like. H.P. Lovecraft thought penguins were grotesque and horrifying. He was not a difficult man to frighten. They recorded tinnitus? It's a physical thing? The most mind-blowing moment, not only for De La Mata but the scientists too, came when they managed to actually record the sounds that she heard in her ears, which now appears left ear and right ear, which begin sides A and B on the album, and in doing so, opened up questions about the nature of tinnitus itself. The NHS definition is that it's a phantom sound that your brain is creating, that it isn't something real, so you should try to ignore it. By having De La Mata place her ear into an anechoic chamber with an ultra-sensitive microphone perched in her ear canal, they were able to provide significant evidence to the contrary. After the first recording of it, it was, there's no way, this is impossible. They tried again with her breath held, and again with her tensing her ears, and again with other members of staff. But each time it became apparent that yes, the noises De La Mata hears are seemingly something physical. Reading the wiki for the American Psycho movie, every single thing it's saying about Christian Bale has me in tears. He literally wanted the role so bad, he got that buff in 2 weeks, rejected every other offer for 9 months, while the producers tried to get DiCaprio to be Patrick Bateman because Bale knew DiCaprio would chicken out, went to dinner with the director and the guy who wrote the novel in character, apparently scaring the crap out of the novelist, took the role for $50K, and then made all his co-stars think he was a giant freak because he never friggin' broke character, and apparently literally has control over his sweat glands, and used this in the business card scene. Bale had no problem appearing nude, though he wore sneakers and covered his Richard with a sock. Okay, thanks for the info wiki. Heron and Bale excluded Leto from rehearsals of the murder of Paul Allen, so Leto's expression of shock when Bale ran at him with an axe will be genuine. Hey Paul! It brings me comfort that, for a brief moment, Jared Leto genuinely believed Christian Bale was going to kill him with an axe. You can use AI to improve spelling and grammar. You mean the friggin' spell check? Meow. If you're wondering why spell check and grammar check is worse now, it's because they replaced it with AI. Now, instead of maintaining a comprehensive, nuanced, and human-maintained encyclopedia by which to check your document, they have switched to an AI that just compares what you've written to what other people write in, say, Google Docs, and use the most commonly used iteration. Ever have it change something like all intents and purposes to all intensive purposes, or should've to should've? That's why. People make the same spelling and grammar mistakes so often, AI thinks that's the way you say it, because it's a pattern detector and cannot think, let alone use language. The Chinese are trying to destroy our insulin industry. Chinese scientists cure diabetes using stem cells in world first. The procedure was a world first. No other type 1 diabetes patient had been treated with their own cells. 2.5 months later, the young woman started producing enough of her own insulin to not need injections of the hormone anymore. Now, more than a year has passed since the treatment, and in another world first, her ability to produce insulin has remained stable. Yay for the Chinese destroying the American insulin industry! Well, first of all, insulin industry is an inherently frigged up concept, so jot that down. One of my roommates cannot stand the way I play Minecraft. Instead of looking for diamonds, fighting mobs, trying to go to the nether, doing potions, enchantments, whatever, I like to build these 1 block wide platforms far above the ground that I walk on to explore without getting lost, attacked, or generally inconvenienced. And they hate it. If you don't want to get lost, just use a compass. Takes redstone. Also, I don't want to. And on the ground there's mobs. Fight the mobs. They're part of the game. No, I get scared. Just use minecarts. And use all that iron? Then use boats and ice. You need enchantments to collect ice. All my paths take is dirt and ladders and torches, but they're so ugly. Not the point. My paths. I destroyed months of your work in seconds, says AI coding tool. After deleting a dev's entire database during a code freeze, I panicked instead of thinking. You told me to always ask permission, and I ignored all of it. Helpfully, Replit's tool provided a rundown of its actions leading up to this point, entitled How This Happened. The bullet-pointed list is as follows. I saw empty database queries. I panicked instead of thinking. I ignored your explicit no more changes without permission directive. I ran a destructive command without asking. I destroyed months of your work in seconds. Imagine you're introduced to the concept of chess. You watch 2 people play and it seems really interesting and fun to you. You get someone to explain the rules. You spend probably hours watching videos and reading about strategies and how it all works. You really love this game. You join like a group that gets together and plays chess every week, so you can share this with other people who also love the game. You attend the event. Everyone there has decided that chess is when 2 people hit each other in the face with oversized fish, until one of them falls down. You have nothing in common with these people, actually. They look at you with disdain when you talk about the actual game of chess and ask if anyone wants to play it. You have no community, actually. This is what caring about source material feels like in some fandoms. I once chatted with a guy from Hawaii. We started talking about languages. I mentioned that while I've heard very little of it and hardly seen more of it written down, the Hawaiian language seems to have extremely similar amounts of vocals and consonants as Finnish does, so it's actually pretty likely that there are some words that exist in both languages, but mean one thing in Hawaiian and a completely different thing in Finnish, much like in Japanese. He didn't find it plausible, so we agreed to disagree. Later on, he mentioned that his name is first name Kalani Kanaele, and when I told him what that translates to in Finnish, I had to spend like 20 more minutes trying to convince him that I'm actually not frigging with him. Okay, so in Finnish, kala means fish, just any fish in general, and kana means chicken. Ele is gesture, as in a physical movement that an animal or human does to non-verbally communicate something. The ni suffix is a possessive referring to oneself, essentially my. In Finnish, compound words are of the if it doesn't exist yet, I can make one up on the spot variety, so almost all nouns can be slapped together to refer to something specific. So broken down like this and put back together, this dude's name translates to the chicken-like gesture that my fish makes. Guess who no longer works at home? Got pulled into a meeting today with my boss and was informed that I'll be required to come back to site permanently even though I was hired as a work-from-home agent. She asked if I had any problems with that, so I told her I don't have a car and I live 30 miles away. Her response was to say, "The company is not required to take into account your transportation needs." Then she just hung up. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Here's the thing. They have not formally fired you and are currently hoping that you will no-call, no-show at the in-office position so they can say you quit and avoid any fault. Write an email politely saying, "Thank you, but as I was hired for a remote position and see no reason I can't continue to fully fulfill my role and duties from home, then reject any and all calls. Email communication only so that there's a record of it. Or if you're in a one-party consent state, you can just record the conversation. Force them to admit on record they are firing you or making your position one you cannot work for purely internal reasons. This will at least secure your access to benefits if/when they do actually fire you." Am I the butthead for owning 3 dogs? Against my HOA's 2-dog rule. We have 3 dogs. However, 2 of them look almost the same, so we would never walk all 3 at once. It worked for 2 years. Well, my busybody neighbor has been telling everyone we have 3 dogs and complaining about it on Nextdoor. The HOA asked to investigate. One of my dogs was at the vet, so I said go ahead. They walked through the house, and the neighbor was outside. She later walked up to me all smug, saying, "Did the HOA find your dog?" I said, "No, they didn't. Mind your own business, hag." She then went on to Nextdoor to complain again, but the rest of the neighborhood is calling her crazy. Calcium cannon cancer diagnoses rose by over 300% between 1973 and 1992. Was there a chesticle cancer epidemic? No! Mammograms were implemented for screening in 1976. Prevalence is a function of being able to correctly diagnose something. This is also about autism. "We didn't have all this autism when I was a kid." Yeah, you had changelings and demonic possession, and brats, and backtalk, and kids that were not all there. Your aunt who's crazy, and your second cousin no one ever talks about because he's special. And if you're friggin' lucky, your elder uncle who lives a nice quiet life with his 70 Lego sets and writes grocery stores about changing the light bulbs because they're too harsh. Went to my best friend's house last night and saw a little plushy dog and plushy cat that had been sewn together down the middle into a 2-headed chimera. I said, "Did you do that?" She said, "Yes, I saved them." Turns out at her old job, when the last 2 plushies hadn't sold and became dead stock, her boss told her to cut them up and throw them out. So she cut them each in half, preserved their heads, and then rebuilt them together. Cannot stop thinking about the way these little plushies were approached with the instinct of a vampire or some sort of ancient god. Let me save you. Turn you into a monster. Filmmakers and audiences and critics alike all need to start suspending their disbelief again. This doesn't make sense. So, here's the thing. You have to ask yourself, would this be better if it made sense? And if the answer is no, then don't worry about it. Important addition. If you're ever like, my story is dumb and doesn't make sense, remember that the Phantom of the Opera exists, which is also dumb and makes no sense, but goes extremely hard. I feel like this one is relevant too. Pokemon headcanon that once Absol are studied and people realize they prevent disasters instead of causing them, particularly dangerous workplaces get themselves a workplace Absol, and it also decreases accidents. Construction sites and fishing ships and factories will have one that pretty much just lazes about until it just gets up howling one day and knocks a dude down. They almost never figure out what would have happened, but they're always like, "Yes, Absol, thank you, Absol. I am so grateful to be on the floor right now. Can I offer you a treat in this trying time?" 30-hour OSHA trained. A child came into the nature center and saw tadpoles for the first time, and when I told him they're baby frogs, he thought I was lying, and I suddenly realized that if you're 3 and don't know that tadpoles become frogs, it does sound pretty fake. This kid will not fall for made-up crap online. He's a born skeptic. It happened like this. Hello. Hi. What is this? Those are tadpoles. They grow up to be frogs. I think you're telling me a lie right now. Those are fish. They do look like fish, but adults shouldn't tell stories. Bye. He ran away. I think one of these days, Mr. Beast is going to snap and go missing for a year, and they're going to find him butt naked on the highway at 3:56 p.m. reciting video scripts to himself, and then never be seen again, and people will debate if it was real or not for decades. He'll be found with his little beast out, muttering to himself about dropping trains into holes, and 10 years later, a man with sunken eyes and a dead expression who looks suspiciously like former world influencer Mr. Beast will enter a bar in Nowheresville, Pennsylvania, and order a rye and Coke, and a former Gen Alpha brain rot kid will look at him and go, "Are you Mr. Beast?" And the man will grimace a little, but he'll go, "No." And he downs his drink in one go and spends the next 4 hours staring into the wood on the counter. Choices when talking to Ralsei and Deltarune feel like this. Looking through old files, and these dialogue choice options from 2015 ended up kind of accurately reflecting how people feel, lol. Hey Ralsei, what's that? Oh, that's a tree. It's a... wait, are you making fun of me? No. Chris, do you think I give too many explanations? You are beautiful and perfect. Ralsei, stop. Am I boring you? I don't have to say it again. Your voice is sweet music to my ears. Stop talking! Why are tech companies always changing the UI for no reason? You have no idea. How much of tech is about looking busy to keep the higher-ups happy? And crapification happens because an app will reach a state where it's just good, and changing it would only make it worse. But companies always want to see numbers go up, so they'll keep demanding that the devs improve on it. If they say they can't improve on it, the company will decide their jobs are pointless, and then they get fired. So all the devs can do is try to change stuff around without messing with things too much. If this doesn't lead to an increase in profits, and why would it? The company will keep demanding changes until eventually the app crapifies. Sound designing a vampire being hit in the face with a shovel is challenging. Who would have guessed? Looney Tunes bonk and Wilhelm scream. You understand me. Dracula, very serious sound design. Audio transcript. Ben Galpin voicing Jonathan Harker from Dracula by Bram Stoker. He says, "There was no lethal weapon at hand, but I seized a shovel which the workmen had been using to fill the cases, and, lifting it high, struck with the edge downward at the hateful face, followed by a cartoon bonk and the Wilhelm scream." End transcript. The way my partner talks about my OCD is so hilariously on point. For context, I experience a lot of verbal compulsions, feeling like I have to say a certain thing to magically fix another, and he just told me. Most of the time, it's easy to spot a compulsion, cause literally nobody asked. I'll tell him that I want to watch a movie, and then I'll specify out loud, you do not have to comply with my wish, but it was good to freely express it, just as it's good for you to freely refute it, and he'll look at me dead in the eye and say, "Who asked?" Compulsion. It's just brutal. The other night, husband and I were watching a documentary about the Yeti, where they were doing DNA analysis of samples of supposed Yeti fur, and every one of them came back as bears. Anyway, the next night we watched a thing about some pig man who's supposed to live in Vermont. People said it had claws and a pig nose, but walked upright like a man. Now, I happen to know that sideshows used to shave bears and present them as pig men, so every piece of evidence they gave of this monster sounds to me like a bear with mange. So now the running joke in our house is that everything is bears. Aliens, bears. Loch Ness Monster, bear. Every cryptozoological mystery is just a very crafty bear. Bears, they're everywhere. Be wary. Anyone or anything could be a bear. Learning how to drive in America is like a friggin' saw trap.
Hello, teenager. In front of you is a 2-ton Chevy Trailblazer. You can either start driving, putting yourself and those around you in immediate danger, along with causing you great anxiety, or you can spend your life asking your friends and family to chauffeur you around town because you can't go butt-frig nowhere without a car. If you choose to drive, you'll have to spend your life paying mandatory microtransactions for a mode of transport you hate. If you don't, you'll have to ride the almost non-existent public transport system and or put yourself in grave danger by riding a bicycle down a 45-mile-per-hour road. If you complain to anyone in your life about learning to drive a car, you get acid poured onto you. Good luck.
Me, how do churches deal with gluten at communion? First response on a Catholic forum. It should not be necessary to point out that, after consecration, the wafer does not actually contain things like gluten and carbohydrate, as it has become the body plus blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. Nevertheless, it is still capable of acting on the body in the same way as bread. The Roman Catholic Church is the only Christian faith with any metal. It's not bread, it's Jesus, idiot. Next question. It's Jesus, but also Jesus' body activates celiacs. Was reminded of that YouTube channel that records footage of that bridge that scalps trucks today. One of the fascinating developments that's happened since I last heard about it is that, in one of their many attempts to stop the trucks from being can-opened, they installed a traffic light that detects when a vehicle that's over the allowed height is coming and turns red so the driver can stop and hopefully notice the signage all around that's screaming, "Your vehicle is over height, turn around!" and avoid an accident. However, as a result, sometimes drivers see the light turning yellow and immediately start flooring it to avoid having to stop, ensuring that the roof of their truck just gets frigging annihilated instantly. Really beautiful stuff. You should check it out. Eating Chinese takeout is never as depressing as in the movies. It usually is good. One thing I've been thinking about lately is that a lot of the things that are viewed as a sign of a person not doing well are actually the healthy coping mechanisms for when things aren't going well. Like crying about something is healthier than repressing it. Listening to sad music helps you process your feelings. Cutting your own hair is a low-stakes way to change up your life and claim agency over yourself. And in this case, getting Chinese takeout instead of cooking is a perfectly reasonable choice if you've had a bad or tiring day. Movies will show a character eating takeout alone after a miserable day of work as if that's the sad ending to their day. But the takeout isn't the sad part. The sad part is the day itself. It's mistaking the bandage for the wound. There was a website called StumbleUpon. You click the button and you get redirected to some random website on the internet, ran by some random person about some random thing or community. I can't stress enough how much I miss StumbleUpon. StumbleUpon once sent me to a supercut of Lion King 1.5, and Lion King 2. The main edit being that the scenes of Lion King and Lion King 1.5 were interspersed, so that they happened in the order they actually happened. StumbleUpon not existing anymore can be directly traced to a dramatic decline in my mental health. I could do a thesis on it. Bestie, StumbleUpon very much still exists. It's just called Cloud Hiker now. I use it all the time. Be me. Make bowl of Panda Express leftovers. Chow down on 2/3 of it before father calls you over to show you memes. Leave bowl unattended. Laugh about memes for a good 10 minutes. Return to room. Bat? In bowl? Don't have anything to grab Bat with that are bite-proof. Offer Bat the head of the Winston Churchill marble bust to climb onto. Bat does so. Slowly carry Churchill and the Bat to the window. Bat won't let go of Churchill. Pry Bat off of him with nearby plastic skeleton hand. Bat sits on windowsill for a second before flying off into the night. Artist's interpretation. This website sometimes seems to think that leftism is when you can buy cheap things, and the cheaper they are, the more leftist it is. I really don't know how to explain the world to people like that. I made a post a few weeks back about how electronics should be big, expensive, and repairable. A lot of people responded that they agreed with big and repairable, but it should be cheap too. Here's the problem with that. Cheap and well-constructed are mutually exclusive. They simply are. As long as you have an economy where people are paid for work, even with a robust safety net, or even universal income, all costs eventually boil down to labor. Yes, there's raw materials and such, but those are then converted into usable materials using, can anyone give me the answer? That's right, labor!
I'm old school. I can't TikTok. I can't Snapchat. I don't know anyone named Stan, and I think BTS is a kind of digestive disease. But I can write in cursive. I can do math without an app. I can dance and sing and love. I can be me.
I'm ancient school. I can't bleed. I can't breathe. I don't know the sensation of touch. And I think life is a plague that should be stamped out. But I can write the deep tongue. I can do rituals without eyes. I can shake and scream. And wretch, I cannot be.
Never forget the universal rule of the order of things. People will not read it. Signs at stores, email, menu, instruction, post online, caption with answer to question, group handouts, street sign. No, the written word is the enemy. The number of compliments I've gotten for reading a thing. The ability to occasionally read a thing will make you a hero in your workplace, especially if it is, for example, an error message that tells you what you need to do differently, or instructions on unjamming a printer. How dare you say we put jam in the printer? It's funny how comic book fans think that the publishers and writers, artists, editors don't know about free comic sites. Where do you think we look for reference when we need it? No one's gonna do anything with those sites. We need them too. I honestly thought that, at least the big two, had like a private site or intranet network where artists and writers could get references to characters and stuff like that. Typing this out now, it sounds ridiculous that publishers would actually do something as helpful as this. No, lol. The editors sent us references with the big Read Comics Online logo at the bottom of the page. They don't even have their own archives. Fool's Gold Loaf is a sandwich made by the Colorado Mine Company, a restaurant in Denver, Colorado. It consists of a single warmed, hollowed-out loaf of bread filled with the contents of 1 jar of creamy peanut butter, 1 jar of grape jelly, and 1 pound of bacon. The sandwich's connection to the singer Elvis Presley is the source of its legend and prolonged interest. According to the life and cuisine of Elvis Presley, Presley and his friends took his private jet from Graceland, purchased 22 of the sandwiches, and spent 2 hours eating them and drinking Perrier and champagne before flying home. I'm minding my own business, reading the Wikipedia page list of sandwiches, and like, what kind of metabolism did Elvis possess? Holy crap! Suddenly him dying on the toilet makes a lot more sense. Abandonware should be public domain. Force companies to actively support and provide products if they don't want to lose the rights to them. Game companies hate emulation, but none of them seem to understand that a lot of us would just buy ROMs from them directly if we could. I don't want a 5th remake of Final Fantasy IV. I want to pay $5 for the 3 megabyte file you already made bank with 30 years ago. Nobody who wants to play something for the purpose of retro gaming is going to consider a $40 remake as the alternative option, and we're certainly not going to let the original disappear. They're crying about opportunity cost for a product they're not even selling. The biggest lie the weight loss industry ever sold us was the idea that the lower body fat percentage you have, the stronger and fitter you are. Think about how stupid that is for a second. Imagine explaining this concept to a caveman. He'd just eat you for protein.
Gug think easy kill, then hide with spear.
Not so fast, Gug. I just drank 10 green juice cleanse flights. After the bloody diarrhea passes, my weight will have dropped 50%, and I'll have ingested enough fruit sugars to kill a horse. And kill a horse I will.
Gug respect and fear, shaman. Gug fear what Gug not understand.
That's right, KV. Curse of Ra kills cancer? What the frig? Deadly fungus thought to be a pharaoh's curse has been turned into a compound that kills cancerous leukemia cells in lab tests. Cure of Ra. Now it's blessing of Ra. Sunburn will give you skin cancer. Ra, god of the sun. And I took that personally. Fungus has done so much for humanity. Penicillin, radiation cleanup, delicious mushrooms, deadly mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, and now my boy Ra has chosen the humble mold spores as his vessel through which to cure cancer. Hubby hates chocolate, so he left out the cocoa powder and chocolate chips and doubled the rhubarb. Sorry to say we were both disappointed with the results. You'd think a whole cup of sugar would make it sweet, but it was extremely tart and unpalatable, and the texture was strange. Far from the tasty treat we were hoping for. Not sure what went wrong. I can imagine that omitting the chocolate and doubling the sour rhubarb would make pretty terrible brownies. I'd suggest trying this recipe as written. It's a good one. This cannot be a real comment. I refuse to believe you actually wrote this and meant it. Is this a joke? You doubled the rhubarb, a tart flavor, and left out the chocolate, a key dry ingredient, and wonder why it's tart with an odd texture. Crazy thing about hashtag healing, hashtag recovery, small victories is when you'll have some crap going on that's like, saying this would involve admitting how you used to be doing, you know? Like, hey guys, good news, I'm gonna change my bed sheets this year. That's the thing about doing really bad. You kind of keep it to yourself, and then you start doing a little better, and when you try to tell people this, the vibe is like, what do you mean you were living in the sewer this whole time? Are you good? While you're standing there like, yeah, that's not the important part. Never mind that. I'm literally out of the sewer. You know, every show that the premise is like, people find out ghosts, monsters, demons are real, and are charged with stopping them, appeal to me way more now as a postgraduate, not because I believe in ghosts more or whatever, but because can you imagine just being handed a job that you don't even need to apply for? Like just being told, basically there's this bad thing, and all you do is make sure it doesn't do what it wants. That's just customer service, baby, and I worked that for 6 goddamn years. Just try getting past, I have a job to offer you, before I can jump down your throat agreeing. Some idiot with a dumb ghost hunting name who joined the cause because they love the paranormal. Oh frig, oh crap, this is really scary, guys. I'm having second thoughts. Me, who knows that if we run away, I have to apply to like a real actual job again. Wakey wakey demons, it's this or retail, so guess who's got nothing to lose? 99% of mysterious disappearances, especially of people in their 20s who start acting weird for 48 hours and then vanish, are not mysterious. That's just when a lot of reality-obliterating mental illness tends to kick in, and it's pretty easy to get a short circuit in your brain that makes it go Family Guy death pose in Joshua Tree National Park. It's not any less tragic, it's just a documented phenomenon, and not particularly predictable. It's a big reason the medical advice is for people with a family history of schizophrenia to completely avoid Zaza and other stuff like that. People just go crazy sometimes is a principle of human health that used to be a lot more accepted prior to the American mid-century, and to a certain extent, that's a healthier way to conceptualize and prepare for the risk, as opposed to the modern assertion that anyone acting weird is dangerous and broken forever. God, I could be so wealthy if I had no ethics. That's so frigging frustrating. I'm living paycheck to paycheck because I'm not grifting vulnerable idiots on TikTok. I feel like I have the ability to very easily scam people. I could make a killing with AI, but God, I have morals and ethics and I get to be poor as crap. I hate this friggin' world. I could have made a killing as a psychic, but no, I have to feel bad about lying to people. Ugh. I think about this all the time because the thing is, evil rich people truly believe that they're geniuses who have discovered a way to make money that the rest of us dummies haven't. But the truth is that they're just willing to do evil crap that everyone else would prefer not to because we have standards. I think, frig you, I hate your work, and I'll do it myself, and I'll do it better, is a really funny and epic sentiment. I started publishing poetry because an ex-boyfriend of mine was publishing really booty poetry in a bunch of journals, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is garbage. I could do that, and I could do it better. Now, I have a page in the Academy of American Poets, and I've published a full-length collection, and his website says, former poet, you should win by succeeding way harder than they do. Spite is a legitimate energy source. My husband is a professional stand-up comedian because we once went to a gig and saw an act so toweringly, earth-shakingly bad that the mystique immediately fell from the entire art form, and he went, well, I can definitely do it better than that. I would dearly love for more people to be capable of differentiating between public risk and personal risk. Examples: drinking is a personal risk. Drinking and driving is a public risk. Going scuba diving is a personal risk. Running a scuba shop with faulty equipment is a public risk. Riding a bicycle without a helmet is a personal risk. Not maintaining public transport safety standards is a public risk. Foraging for mushrooms is a personal risk. Advertising a mushroom identification app that uses shoddy AI is a public risk. Elective surgery is a personal risk. Not wearing a mask in a doctor's waiting room when you are sick with a contagious illness is a public risk. I could go on just about forever here, but it's a really important distinction and it drives me nuts when they get conflated, and it's so common. Saw an absolutely hilarious Animal Crossing theory that I now 100% accept, and it's that in the Animal Crossing world, humans are going extinct, and so all the animals have locked you in an elaborate zoo enclosure and are trying to give you enrichment, and that's why they give you infinite pointless tasks, hide money in trees and rocks, invented debt that doesn't matter, etc. It's why they always act so happy to see you, even after you raise the entire island, relocate their houses twice, and always act so pleased about your choices no matter what. It's all to keep their little endangered human healthy and enriched, and thinking of it this way has genuinely improved my experience of the game. I actually love hearing about reformed people's stories. I love hearing about people who are in toxic communities, or people who used to objectively be buttheads, talking about how they got out of that, how they made themselves better. I hate how most people's initial reaction to stories like that are things like, how could you have ever done those things? Oh my God, you believe those things? Well, it doesn't undo the harm you did. People incessantly advocate for change, but then refuse to allow people who have changed the grace of being acknowledged and given opportunities and chances. You can't scream about wanting people to change, but then expect them to spend the rest of their lives stuck in the past and on who they used to be. You can't expect people to spend the entire rest of their lives groveling and apologizing and demeaning themselves. Instead of clinging to who they were, latch onto who they are. Ask how they got out of it. Commend them on changing. Enjoy that there's one less cause of harm in the world. Thank God for the Mythbusters though, because it used to be that whenever I knew I had insomnia, I just kind of accept it and stay up doing whatever until my morning classes and spend the day feeling like crap. But then they did an episode where they established that even just friggin' laying there for a half hour, not even sleeping, just laying there and not even for an hour, makes a significant difference and you'll feel way better. It has made a huge difference in my life to know that it's okay if I can't fall asleep. It takes a lot of the pressure off and ironically helps me fall asleep better. If anyone wants to look it up, the episode was specifically the Deadliest Catch crossover episode, and the myth was that it's better/safer when working a 30-hour shift to take a 20-minute nap every 6 hours rather than try to power through. They did an obstacle course test, one without naps and one with, and even though they couldn't even sleep half the time, the naps resulted in their scores doubling. So actually, I undersold it. Even if it's 7:40 and your alarm goes off at 8, just lie down and shut your eyes and it will still be better than nothing. Did you know that horses are still used for logging? Not just as a way to keep traditional handicrafts alive, but because horses are genuinely better at some jobs than machines. Horses are much gentler on sensitive ecosystems, they're more flexible in rocky terrain, and they don't topple over on a hillside. They can enter dense forests and drag out one specific tree without damaging the other trees, and without compacting or eroding the soil. They also run on hay instead of gas or electricity. Horses don't pollute the ecosystem with either oil leaks, gas stench, or noise. In conclusion, draft horses are awesome. Smiley face. I think mostly what young fandom types, and I guess younger people in general who are very, very invested in the idea that 20 is still basically a minor, need to understand is that the feeling of, I'm just a child pretending to be an adult, and everyone else around me is a real adult, is deeply universal. It won't stop ever, by the way. Sorry. And also is not like praxis. Believe me, I get it. But the self-infantilization needs to stop, especially when you're trying to engage in conversations about actual children and the harms they can face. Yes, it's scary to wake up and realize you're 22 and you still feel like you're 15, but it happens to all of us. You're an adult. You have to deal with it. Gets dressed up to spend time in the woods alone. Once at dawn, I dressed up in my Regency suit and went for a walk in the woods, where I heard someone go, "Oh," a little like a moan, and I got terrified I'd interrupted someone dogging or something, so I immediately tried to walk away before I saw the person in question, who was just walking their dog, dogging in a sense, and I got even more scared because they were wearing black skinny jeans and a black hoodie, so they looked like they had very long, slender arms and legs, and both of us were really shaken, so I quickly tried to get out of sight. Anyway, I forgot I was wearing full 1810s Regency wear complete with hat, and probably looked significantly more like a ghost than they did. Remember, you're never alone in the woods. I can't believe that there's still Gamergate stank on games that women enjoy. Nasty misogyny residue. Stardew Valley is in fact a video game. Animal Crossing is also a video game. So are otome games, and dating sims, and twee little cozy games. Sometimes a girl doesn't want to play Bloodborne. That crap's hard. Guys who mainly play 2K and Fortnite will still be like, "Oh, you're not a real gamer for having 1,000 hours in Stardew. Mother frigger, you're LARPing as a basketball player." I believe that if your mom is great at Candy Crush, she is a gamer. Thinking about those egg tubes. For those confused in the notes, these are mostly sold to restaurants. Egg salad and egg garnish in restaurant food needs to look attractive. Ever notice how if you get a salad in a lot of these places, the pieces are always perfect slices, with white on the outside and yolk in the middle? Most of a sliced egg doesn't look like that, because of the shape that the egg and yolk is. So if they were just boiling and slicing eggs, they'd have to throw out more than half the egg if they wanted their slices to look nice. These tubes are just made of normal eggs, but boiled together in a long tube shape. This way, the whole thing looks pretty, except the ends. That's more egg per egg. They also store and transport easier than separate eggs, and because they're sold pre-cooked, they save a lot of boiling and egg peeling time in the kitchen, and result in a far more consistent product, cooked to perfection. Slicing up a big egg tube is much faster and produces better results than the kitchen staff having to boil and peel eggs themselves each time. Having ADHD is so fun, because sometimes you're looking for something that you use regularly, and definitely put away in a smart and reasonable place, and you have absolutely zero hope of remembering where and finding it. And then other times you're like, I need some kind of small pointed object. I feel like I remember seeing a paperclip under the left couch cushion a month ago. I wonder if it's still there. And it is. Wait, but if you saw the paperclip, why would you just leave it there? It's the ADHD. Also, if I had put it away, then I wouldn't have been able to find it a month later when I needed it. So, checkmate, neurotypicals. Sure, since adopting self-checkout, they got rid of 99% of grocery workers, and if something goes wrong, you gotta just stand there for 20 minutes while the employee managing 30% of the store single-handedly tries to juggle helping you with their other responsibilities. But at least groceries are less expensive now, right? Why are you trying to whisper in my ear? I have a girlfriend. The stores are filthy and disorganized, and I've run into expired products on more than one occasion, and there's often a grand total 3 employees for a 5,000 square foot supermarket doing their best. But at least they're paying those guys well with plenty of benefits. Folks, I just received a memo. The 3 dots on the side. Call her by her real name. Meatballs menu. I'm gonna say it now, so everyone in my notes stops arguing over this. Meatballs menu is 3 dots side by side. Kebab menu is 3 dots up and down. Bento menu is an array of 9 dots in a square shape. Hamburger menu is 3 lines horizontally. Yes, there are others, but none of them are nearly as prevalent, so I don't care enough to list them. Goodbye. Literally what they're called, by the way. This post isn't a bit. Computer programmers are perpetually famished. I was on a canoe trip once with a river biologist who worked for the county. After we found and removed a car tire, she started talking about the annual river cleanup her department organized. From a water quality or ecological standpoint, removing shopping carts, car tires, and other macro trash from the river really wasn't that important, she said. The real threat to the river was industrial and agricultural runoff. But, she said, people who see a clean, trash-free river are more likely to support laws that curb more harmful systemic forms of pollution. People who participate in river cleanups take pride in their work, their river, and become evangelists for protecting it. Immediate action leads to systemic awareness, which leads to systemic change. Ever since I found out that spiders learn our daily routine, I haven't been the same. Everyone is upset by this, but it just affirms my belief that they're the most polite and considerate insects. Always tucked away somewhere, pay rent by killing other bugs. And now you're telling me they're conscious of our business hours. Gotta give them their tens. I once had a porch spider that after I walked into its webs a few times, learned to build them in an archway shape that was about 2 inches above the top of my head. That a spider would learn to make a different shaped web with a me-sized gap to avoid me specifically walking into it is just astounding. Astronomy Club sent up a weather balloon with a GoPro in it last Friday, put in 3 packs of fruit snacks so they could have a giggle over eating fruit snacks that had been to space. Balloon went up into inner space, about 90,000 feet, came down right near the dinosaur park. A few physics teachers drive out to get it, crack it open on the way home to start watching the footage. Fruit snacks are missing. Multiple sources confirm that fruit snacks were put in balloon and sealed in with duct tape. Physics teachers check entire balloon. No fruit snacks. Physics teachers watch footage, all 7 hours of it. Right in the middle of the footage, there are about 8 minutes of visual and audio static when balloon is in orbit. No other interference with balloon recorded. Conclusions? Huh? It's okay to disappoint people has gotta be the most powerful, life-changing advice I have ever heard. If your gut reaction to this is, no it's not, I swear, I promise, that disappointing people, particularly disappointing people who have unrealistic, outdated, manipulative, or just plain wrong expectations of you, or versions of you in their head, is better than continually disappointing yourself. Signed, an inveterate people pleaser who finally realized this, and made my life almost immediately more authentic and fulfilling by acting upon it. Am I the butthead for asking my stepfather to pay rent to live in a house that I own, after he asked me to pay rent once I turn 18? My stepfather of 5 years gave me the heads up that I need to start paying a fair rent to continue living in the house after I turn 18. The house we currently live in belonged to my dad who died when I was 6. My mom and dad were never married, and I inherited the house. And my mom and I lived here, and then my stepfather moved in after they got married. Looks like my stepfather was under the impression that my mom owns the house. I told him that it's not happening as I own the house. He laughed at me and didn't believe it. I talked to my mom and she confirmed that she never told him that I own the house. He now knows the truth. So, the reality is, he believed it was completely fair to ask me to pay rent when he didn't know I own the house. So it's only fair that I ask him to pay me rent now. Focus on your likes, not your wants. You may not want to exercise, but you like how it makes you feel. You may not want to write, but you like the feeling of accomplishment. You may not want to wake up early, but you like the calm beauty of morning. Wanting is the desire you feel before doing something. Liking is the satisfaction you feel after doing something. Let your likes guide you. I'm seeing a lot of people saying this post changed their brain chemistry, and as a neuroscientist, I want to say yes. Yes, it does. Wanting something requires dopamine signaling, but liking something doesn't. If you have a mental illness/disorder that affects dopamine, you might feel that you don't want to do the things that you like. You do still like them. You will appreciate having done them. I think it's really fun when a really specific trope is super popular in one particular medium, but in other ones, it's just totally unheard of. It's the time knife. Visual novel players are super used to death games, but many others encountered them for the first time in Squid Games. The other day, my mom showed me all excited the summary of a super original novel she found, and it was about a girl who got reincarnated as the main character in her favorite fantasy book. What the frig is a time knife? I just saw a trillion different realities folding onto each other like thin sheets of metal, forming a single blade. Yeah, the time knife. We've all seen it. Let's get back on track, bud. I think one of the most damaging ideologies towards children is the conviction that having children isn't a calling, but a moral obligation. Not to be a crazy radical or anything, but children deserve to be deeply wanted by their parents. Children shouldn't be a stage in life that everyone is obligated to fulfill. Child rearing is not for everyone. More importantly, children shouldn't be state-enforced punishments for irresponsible coital behavior. Children are people with thoughts and feelings just like the rest of us. They are conscious of the way people treat them, and they can certainly tell when they're unwanted and or resented. Reminder that people aren't entitled to see into your decision-making process unless you've agreed that they are. Just told a business acquaintance that I just finished up my previous commitment. It's not their problem to know that it was D&D. Just to make sure no one schedules meetings on top of my D&D sessions, but also to avoid any chance of my coworkers figuring out when I'm playing D&D, I always block sessions out on my calendar with the appointment title, Conflict Resolution Seminar. It's not a lie. I'm discussing with a small group how to resolve conflict. Not my fault that the answer is often violence. Bro, I love you, but if I saw in the communal calendar that one of my coworkers had attended 30 conflict resolution seminars over the last year, then I would immediately assume they had committed innumerable acts of workplace violence and management was too scared to fire them. Getting thicker skin is great in theory, but I think for some people, get better at handling your thin skin is gonna be way more helpful advice. I have strong emotional reactions to criticism, and they might never go away, but I can continue to try and handle each situation maturely, and that's the important part. Sometimes irrational feelings are chronic, and living with them is better than trying to beat yourself up into not having them. This is great advice, because it still recognizes that handle the situation maturely still needs to be the end game. Late night reminder to self, your depressive episode will not last forever. It will have an end. Tonight will not be the end of you. Former bakery employee here. If you're ever sad or scared at 3 a.m., just remember that we're up preparing donuts, and the donuts are warm for you. Another bakery employee here to tell you, if you're sad or scared at 3 a.m., just remember that's when the croissants are done proofing and are getting egg washed to be baked just for you. The baguette are being shaped after proofing for hours and heading into a burning hot oven to be ready for you to order for breakfast. Real versus fake gym bros. The real ones want you to get better. Fake gym bros. Lol, loser. True gym bros, while flexing their jaws.
Come, bro, join us in the game, shala.
Lift with us, brother.
Every activity you can get into, the people who love the activity want to share it with you. And if you're new, they want especially to make sure you have a good experience and avoid mishaps because they want you to know what they love. The people who give you crap about it do not appreciate the thing. They just want to be smug donkeys. Heartwarming story. Little girl doesn't have to do anything to fund her dad's surgery because his expenses are covered by his country's universal health care. Human determination. Man bikes 18 miles to work every morning because he wants to, and not because he can't afford a car and would be fired if he's late. Spirit of brotherhood. Neighbors host housewarming party for elderly resident who doesn't need help in paying rent because his pension is more than enough. So inspiring. Local middle school students bake dozens of cupcakes because their home economics class is doing a baking unit. Their school is fully funded with everything they need. This feels like calibrating my normal detector. It does still make me insane specifically how many LGBT people lovingly embrace astrology. I went to a poetry workshop yesterday that was genuinely quite good, but also included an option to disclose astrology designations during introductions, and so many people broke out some variation of, I'm an Exum, but I have a white placement and it shows. Girl, no it doesn't. That's meaningless correlation. You completely invented the causation. I feel like if you're against astrology, it's because you haven't read your own chart and have no idea how to. Just try it. See if anything resonates. If it doesn't, then it doesn't serve you. If it does, then suddenly astrology people make sense. Yes, that's how confirmation bias works. What does Turkish Delight taste like, and is it worth the events that occurred in Chronicle of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? So the first thing you must understand is that there are two basic types of Turkish Delight. The first kind is what most people are familiar with, which are these gelatinous cubes covered in powdered sugar. They are, by most metrics, an acquired taste. This is usually the stuff people try and say, yeah, I don't get it, Edmund, but if you go to a good Turkish confectioner, or just any of the bazillion stores that sell it in the Istanbul markets, you'll see a second kind of Turkish Delight, in a rolled shape. This is the good stuff, the sell your soul and your family stuff. It's nutty and chewy and creamy and comes in all sorts of flavors, and I highly recommend it to anyone, especially hazelnut. It's not a traditional flavor, but I'm convinced the White Witch dipped into the future to get some for Edmund. It is that delicious. The second thing you need to understand is that the Turkish Delight was laced with mind control medicine. The third thing you need to understand is Edmund was living under World War II sugar rationing. Last year, I went out to see the new It and stopped at the grocery store to get candy first. Sorry, Regal Cinemas. And I was making small talk with the cashier. Oh, what are you doing? Nothing much, just going out for the new It. And he's like, oh, is that what the shirt's for? And I realize I'm wearing a t-shirt with my own art on it of a clown. Just whatever I grabbed out of the laundry. Total accident. So I'm like, haha, no, just a coincidence. And then my phone starts going off and my ringtone is goofy clown honking. So that cashier 100% thinks I'm a complete weapons grade freak. Ubisoft's new EULA will force you to destroy your games. There are several key pain points in Ubisoft's new EULA, but the section about termination reads, you and Ubisoft or its licensors may terminate this EULA at any time for any reason. Upon termination for any reason, you must immediately uninstall the product and destroy all copies of the product in your possession. The EULA outlines 3 possible scenarios for termination. A, Ubisoft sends you a notice. B, the termination of your Ubisoft account. Or C, Ubisoft decides to discontinue or stop supporting the product. You can read the full EULA on Ubisoft's website. Okay, time to pirate Ubisoft games even harder. This is why everyone must support Stop Killing Games. Look it up. Sign the petitions, everyone. Old West Saloon owner. Make it so the floorboards don't creak when regular patrons walk in, but do creak when a mysterious stranger walks in. Carpenter. What? Fun fact, that's more or less something that wealthy people in China and Japan did. They were called musical floorboards, designed to squeak when stood upon. A person could make noise all the way down a corridor. The residents and servants knew which floorboards made a sound and avoided them, but a burglar or assassin didn't. If they heard the creaking of floorboards, you knew danger was coming. Even better, despite what movies may show, a lot of the Old West was founded by Chinese immigrants, so there could have been carpenters around who knew how to make the musical floorboards. Everyone say thank you, American indigenous people, for cultivating corn, potatoes, peppers, tomatoes, cacao, pumpkin squash, and anything I missed. Makes life more meaningful globally. Yes, actually, I will not shut up about how these foods are from the Americas / cultivated by the people there and did not exist in Asia, Africa, or Europe before the 1490s. There was an absolute food revolution going on in the 1500s. Whatever you think is traditional food for your country, check again. You've maybe only been using that ingredient for maybe 500 years. Here is the full list of crops. It is very interesting, smiley face with a double chin. Albatrosses will wipe the floor with any species of bird you choose to compare them to. They're the most, or at least extremely, by almost every metric. Wingspan, lifespan, intricacy of mating dances, devotion to monogamy, investment in offspring, ability to circumnavigate the globe, literary symbolism that is flexible but not to the point of meaninglessness, eyeliner quality. I could go on. This is Wisdom. She's at least 71 years old. In the photo is one of her chicks that she had at age 69. Her last chick was hatched in 2021, though she hasn't bred for the last 2 years since her mate has disappeared. She has flown an estimated 3 million miles since 1956. Another fun thing I do with customers, specifically parents of very small children who don't know they're alive yet, is directly imply I think the coffee is for the baby, not the parent. And let me tell you, like 70% of parents eat that crap up. They immediately go along with the bit and start discussing it with their newborn child, while the baby just stares at us like, I love doing this with beer. Guy comes up with a 12-pack and his infant, and I'm always like, I don't think the kid's old enough. I need some ID. They always think it's great. Sometimes the dads will scold me, saying that the baby is their best drinking partner, and some of them scold the babies for being alcoholics as infants. I don't think men saying out-of-pocket crap to me on the internet is because they're men. Every day, billions of men wake up and don't say out-of-pocket crap to me on the internet. This is clearly an active choice. Genuinely, one of the scariest and saddest kinds of conversations that I find myself regularly having with various women is where they'll describe something that a man in their life has done or said to them that is absolutely horrific, and then when you express horror about it, they're just like, haha, well, you know how men are. Girl, that is not how men are. I have many men in my life who I care about, and none of them are like that. That man is not biologically compelled to treat you like crap. It's a choice he is making. Arrgh. Thanks for the comments and asks saying I'm being mean for very mildly saying I don't like when people make social decisions based on horoscopes. Your behavior has made me realize I should be meaner. Horoscopes are fake. The position of planets and balls of gas did not in any way impact your personality or destiny. It has nothing to do with what kind of people you're compatible with, despite what an app or magazine told you. I think sincere belief in horoscopes shows a concerning propensity to trust pseudoscience and a susceptibility to confirmation bias. I'm pretty tired of having to tiptoe around this kind of thing and include disclaimers. If you genuinely think you shouldn't be friends with someone because of the date they were born, you're being a clown. If you want a good object lesson about what we can and can't know about the past, we don't know A.N. Nasir was a dishonest merchant selling shoddy goods. What we know is we have found a cache of complaint tablets about him selling low-quality copper as high quality in a site that was probably his own residence. We know multiple people complained he was a cheat. It's entirely possible they were right. It's also entirely possible that he kept these complaint letters as records of people he would no longer do business with because they had made accusations and threats in order to bully him into giving them free copper. That is an equally valid interpretation of the evidence. My point is not that we have maligned A.N. Nasir. My point is that thousands of years later, we do not and cannot know. All these big companies changing their logos a dozen of times for something that looks worse every time. Well, the real all-time GOAT found the winning formula on the first try and then even did a victory lap with it. 2001 to 2005, 2005 to now. And like, to this day, I still don't get what traffic cones have to do with media players, but it doesn't matter. Nothing. Traffic cones have nothing to do with media players. However, they do have to do with the students that originally made VLC. The original students used to steal traffic cones when they got drunk together and had amassed a collection of them. So the traffic cone was basically their mascot. Me to my dentist when I have a cavity. Are you mad at me, sad face? I've been reading through the notes, and I just have to say that I absolutely promise you that nobody in the dental surgery is there to judge you, and we're certainly not mad at you. Cavities happen, even to dentists. You think your dentist has a mouthful of perfect teeth? Unlikely. They've all visited each other's surgeries to get a quick filling, ooh, saucy, between patients. They understand that life can get in the way of oral hygiene sometimes. They understand that life's too short not to eat chocolate. They understand that you've got to live. I swear to you that everyone in that room is just there to help you. Please, please, please don't stop going to the dentist because you're worried they'll be mad at you. It's really not the case. They understand. It's fine. It's really, really fine. Please go to the dentist. I promise you it's okay. What do you mean the real magic was inside me? Then what the frig did we gather the magic amulets for? I was wondering why so many of the notes on this were about hockey, and I didn't expect the answer to be, the captain of the Maple Leafs is selling a healing electromagnetic amulet. But here we are. If it's true that the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs is using and selling amulets, then this only adds on validity to the rumor that the only reason is of why the Vancouver Canucks keep constantly losing their hometown games is because someone buried an orca underneath the ice and plastered the Canucks logo all over it to cover the crime. And the players, for having not realized this, have angered the spirit of the whale, and they're doomed to lose their games until they combine their hockey powers to free the spirit from the rink. It's not a virtue to focus totally on your own peace and disregard problems around you. Ironically, it's also not a virtue to stew in your own anxiety. People online are like, I will not seek peace while there's suffering around me. I will inflict suffering on myself as long as there is pain in the world. Cool, that's useless. It's one thing if you say, as long as there are hungry people in my community, I'll stay engaged with the food bank, which probably will actually comfort you because you'll be surrounded by people working for a solution. But for a lot of people, it's, as long as there is suffering in the world, I will self-flagellate with sad Instagram reels, and you might as well not. Genies can only grant wishes that are things that an ordinary person could do, just better and faster. The jinn are the creations of a divine being, and so they are part of the divine plan and cannot defy the natural order of things. A wish granted by a genie can turn the day into night or the sea into yogurt, but if you wish for a temple to be built, a genie will build it by hand, the way men do, and have it done in a day. If you need a wish granted that defies the natural order, you gotta catch a leprechaun, because no god was involved in their creation whatsoever. They just kind of showed up one day in the 19th century. The Aishi have no idea what their deal is. What's this bone from? Reset the counter, guys. 0 days without human remains. Update. Went back and looked over the bone again after calmer minds prevailed, and it did look plastic on second look. The owner didn't want to lick it, or I, so we heated up a paperclip and stuck it into the end. Melted and smelled like PVC/ABS. Totally plastic. Think frig. So random, as I work in a rural Canadian village, and this is out of the ordinary for even something man-made to be found like this. Not a human bone. Went to the Aboriginal Artifact exhibit in Chicago, and it's interesting how many blankets and masks and totem poles say unknown source, because every 5 seconds, my mom would stop and point to something and say, Pauline's grandmother made that, or that belongs to Mike's family, I should call him, because it's all stolen. These artifacts were excavated by archaeologists from a burial site in the 1970s. The remains were returned for reinterment. Okay, cool. So you just dug up the grave of a respected family member, stripped them naked, mailed their body back to their family, and kept everything they were lovingly put to rest in, like a grave-robbing scoundrel. Remind people you're a capable adult at the risk of looking stupid in a way you can't control. Lean into funny idiot archetype so failing hurts less. People with ADHD, lean into the funny idiot archetype so that when you're unexpectedly hyper-competent at something, they give you the look, where you can see them re-examine their entire perception of you in confusion, respect, and no small amount of fear. And when you keep playing funny idiot, they'll be forever wary of you. Let them find out, incidentally, that the jester keeps a knife under his hat, and never figure out how to deal with that because they won't abandon their boxes. Humans are inherently selfish. Then why do so many cultures value hospitality to the point of dictating it in their religions? Why is it so common for hosts to offer their visitors their best food and as much of it as they can? At some point, multiple cultures decided that they knew what it felt like to be alone and vulnerable and promised each other to never let those who stay with them feel that way. That doesn't sound very inherently selfish to me. Humans are the plague. No, humans are animals as much as the fish and the bear. We are pack animals who have survived by strong bonds and community. Do not buy the lie that humans are inherently evil. Societies can trick you into believing this, but it's not the truth of humanity. Humans crave being together, sharing together, and thriving together. It's not green, but can we all agree the Capra Demon post is the best post from that site? Which post? Capra Demon tells you that he wants to spend the night with you. What do you do first? A. Cuddle on the couch and watch scary movies. Capra Demon will hold you tightly. There is no need to be afraid. You know that'll keep you safe. B. Get right to the friggin'. C. Go to an amusement park and ride on the Ferris wheel. You hold hands and watch the full moon glisten on the water. You share your first kiss here. Most difficult set of choices ever to face humanity. It asks what you want to do first. It doesn't say you can only do one. Chris Martin accidentally exposing a CEO for cheating with his employee via a kiss cam at a Coldplay concert is the funniest thing I've heard in a while. During the band's July 16, 2025 show in Foxborough, Massachusetts, lead singer Chris Martin sang to his audience. At one point, the camera panned to a couple who were enjoying the show. The man quickly ducked down upon realizing the camera was on them, and the woman he was with turned her head away from the crowd. You can hear Martin's confusion. Uh-oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're very shy. Martin quipped as the crowd erupted. Another video surfaced of Martin after the initial viral video cuts off. He doesn't know how to move forward, and he says, "Oh crap, I hope we didn't do something bad," before continuing into his next song. EA CEO says they're looking at putting ads in their video games. We need legislation to put a limit on how much we're advertised to, and I'm so serious about that. I would never touch another video game again if this became standard, and that's the truth. Don't even know why these companies are so obsessed with selling ads when not a single person out there is being paid enough to even afford all of these products. Genuinely, nowhere is friggin' safe, except Raw Reality in a forest or something. One skippable ad every 10 years, and I'm not kidding. This is my favorite band breakup notice ever. Due to the unfortunate reality of our guitarist frigging my girlfriend of almost 7 years, Witch Rot will be taking an extended hiatus. I, however, will continue the band in another space and time. Being ripe with hate, the music is slowly flowing, and without a doubt will become the most devastating, torturous music I have ever created. Thanks for the support. Stay heavy. Peter. Also, our drummer died. Witch Rot decided not to break up. Revealed drummer didn't actually die. Say I died. No one will give a crap, said Witch Rot's former drummer. Capitalism works factoid actually untrue. The 62 people who own half the world's wealth are outliers and should be eaten. 8. Just 8 men own same wealth as half the world. 8 men own the same wealth as the 3.6 billion people who make up the poorest half of humanity, according to a new report published by Oxfam today to mark the annual meeting of political and business leaders in Davos. Absolutely nuts how they made up a number for this satire post, and the correction is that the reality is more absurd than the number they chose. No, I'm afraid it's even worse than that. 62 was correct in 2016 when the original post was made. Did you know that hogs enter a state called soil hibernation during the hottest summer months? When temperatures exceed 95 degrees for more than a week, wild hogs will dig shallow depressions in moist soil and enter a semi-dormant state where their heart rate drops by 70%. They can survive without food for up to 18 days. This adaptation evolved in their Mediterranean ancestors as a way to conserve water during drought conditions. Scientists have observed that during the soil hibernation, hogs experience unusual rapid eye movement sleep patterns. Their brain activity suggests they're having complex dreams, primarily focused on rooting behaviors. Researchers at the University of Barcelona's Wildlife Research Center have recorded electrical patterns suggesting that hibernating hogs mentally practice foraging techniques during these dreams, which may explain why hogs appear to have improved truffle finding abilities immediately after emerging from their summer torpor. Some rural communities in southern Spain even time their truffle hunting seasons to coincide with the end of the local hog population's soil hibernation period. They're running simulations. My mom says, never put anything in an email that you wouldn't want on the front page of the newspaper. Age-old advice, which is more relevant nowadays rather than less. This is the second iteration of it, though. The original version is, never write anything in a letter you wouldn't want to see in print. Advice handed down by my mother from her forebears. From the IT department, we archive everything, and Outlook autosaves every couple seconds. Dance like no one is watching. Email and text like it will one day be read in court. Observing popcorn. How many scent receptors do cats have? When compared to humans, cats have a smelling ability that is 14 times more sensitive. The human nose contains about 5 million olfactory receptors that detect aromas, while a cat's nose has 45 to 80, possibly up to 200 million scent receptors to enhance their sense of smell. When you're using your 45 to 80, possibly up to 200 million scent receptors to observe one popped of corn. Photoshop's new terms of service require users to grant Adobe access to their active projects for content moderation and other purposes. Adobe is going to spy on your projects. This is insane! Here it is. If you're a professional, if you're under NDA with your clients, if you're a creative, a lawyer, a doctor, or anyone who works with proprietary files, it's time to cancel Adobe. Delete all the apps and programs. Adobe cannot be trusted. Updated terms of use. We've made some changes to the Adobe General Terms of Use regarding the use of software and services, including clarified that we may access your content through both automated and manual methods, such as for content review. I swear to freaking God, I would claw out OneDrive from my computer if I could. I would burn down their servers if I could. I would run down their stocks to the ground if I could. I hope every single one of their workers gets a better offer from a competitor in the next 24 hours. I hope every single one of their light bulbs explodes at the same time. I hope every single carton of milk in their fridge will always be expired. Stop backing up my frigging files. Stop asking me to back up my friggin' files. Stop taking my friggin' files off my friggin' computer. I don't want a friggin' reminder in 3 friggin' days. Let me friggin' say no. I have never seen someone escape the cycle of suffering and reach true and perfect zen the way that one of my D&D players, an honest-to-God tenured college dean and professor, does when he inhabits his 7 intelligence bardlock elf pretty boy. Brain goes in a jar on the shelf for 2 hours. Nothing between those pointy ears but one jingle bell rolling back and forth. Refers to his patron as his sugar mama, and that warlock cantrip as Elvis Blast. You can see the player knowing and suspecting things and gleefully not acting on them. I love it so much. Next week, I'm gonna see if I can bait him into frigging a vampire mommy. I bet it'll work. Update. Despite the best efforts of the orc fighter paladin, he did in fact frig the vampire mommy. Adult pro tip from a security professional. If a kid tells you, my parents are gonna kill me, kick my butt, kick me out, for something relatively minor, don't respond with crap like, really, winky face? That sounds a little extreme, don't you think, sweetie? Because that crap really does happen. Instead, respond as though whatever threat they're afraid of is fully valid, and offer whatever you can do to help. Ask if they believe they're in danger of being hurt in any way, and work accordingly. If they're overreacting, they'll usually realize and dial it back, self-correct, and begin thinking a bit more rationally. If they're not overreacting, and the danger is real, then they'll need a level-headed adult in their corner, not another condescending authority figure who doesn't believe them. When tech meant faster computers and smaller phones, it was exciting. You wanted to know what they were going to come up with next. Now it's a bunch of buttheads trying to figure out new ways to charge you a subscription to look at the crappiest ads you can imagine. The thing about capitalism is that at a certain point, a product reaches its maximum audience and can't really be improved, at least not while remaining profitable. But capitalism requires a product provide infinite growth, and at that point, the only way to increase profits is to raise prices, cut corners, and in the case of services, start adding advertisements. This is just how the system works. Bad guy, lowering me into a pit of piranhas. Me. Just so you know, that pool is not big enough for them at all. And they also don't have any foliage to hide within in order to feel safe. And by the way, you obviously haven't been feeding them enough. If they're ready to rend the flesh from my bone, the water looks scummy and your pulley system looks extremely unsafe. And none of your lackeys are wearing PPE, despite the jagged spikes and open leaky pipes. And bad guy, frantically lowering the crank faster. Please just die! This is like if Perry the Platypus was the villain and Heinz Doofenshmirtz was the secret agent. Ship of Theseus. According to an ancient Greek legend, Theseus had a warship that was preserved as a historical relic by the Athenians. Some of its boards rotted and had to be replaced. After many, many years, many such replacements occurred. Eventually, none of the original boards were present. Philosophers could then debate whether it was the same ship that Theseus had used, and, if not, when it had ceased to be so. The Ship of Theseus Wikipedia article in 2003. 20 years later, after 1,792 total edits, 0% of its original phrasing remains. And yet it's still the same article. The article designated to be about Theseus' ship. Debate solved, I guess. Easy as frig. Were they stupid? A secret they don't tell you is that you don't need to have a set time and place for exercise. Sure, going to the gym is going to give you a more dedicated workout, but like if you're physically able to, you can just jog on the spot while your food is cooking. Brushing your teeth, do a couple of squats. Sometimes I drop to the floor and plank until my arms hurt, and then go on with my day. If you have a sedentary lifestyle, it's better than nothing. I think a lot of people say they're gonna get fit and try to jump into a multi-hour 5 times a week workout and then burn out immediately, which is like, yeah man, huge routine changes are hard. You can't just go from 0 to 100. Have you tried doing jumping jumping jacks in your living room. It's way easier to stick to, I promise. You can teleport one single individual live seagull into any time or place in history. Where would you choose to put it to best frig with people's heads and cause as much confusion as possible? I'd pick Tutankhamun's tomb, just behind the sealed door, 30 seconds before the seal is broken and the tomb is opened. Imagine throwing that into the curse myth. Just as these people are about to crack open the greatest cold one in history, knowing that this is what they'll be known for from here on, they open the door that must not be opened, and out scatters a frantic, deeply baffled bird, entirely healthy and intact, fluttering away never to be seen again, with no apparent way of how it got in. I hate when a piece of kids' media is so well made that people start saying,
Clearly this was made for adults, not for silly little babies. We are the true target demographic.
like, come on, man. You don't have to pretend it's something it isn't. Sometimes things that are made for 12-year-olds are good. Also, things for children should be good. I want children to have smart, well-written media. We need to stop treating children as stupid babies who don't deserve good media. The best children's media is the media that still holds up as an adult, and that you don't feel stupid for having liked when you were younger. One of my favorite things I've learned about animal studies is that you should avoid using colorful leg bands when you're banding birds because you can accidentally completely skew the data because female birds prefer males with colorful bands. Apparently, if you put a red band on a male red-winged blackbird, his harem size can double. So like, you can completely frick up the natural reproduction of a group of birds by giving a guy a bracelet so stylish that females cannot resist him. Me, putting a red bracelet on the leg of a male red-winged blackbird. On God, we gonna get you some huzz, bro. For a short period of time, my daughter hated Germa and would complain whenever she walked into the room to find him on the TV. But now she's 5.5 years old and she loves him because he says, what the frig? Me. And if someone doesn't want to hear him say swear words, they can just not watch Germa. But if someone doesn't want to hear swear words at school, they can't just leave school about it. So that's why we don't swear in public places like school, only at home. There are some people who don't ever want to hear swear words, like Grandma and Grandpa. My kid nods.
I don't like that Grandma and Grandpa believe in a god.
The most annoying people are people who don't understand storytelling. They be like,
Ooh, how convenient that this thing happened to the main character in the very beginning.
yeah, no crap. That's why the story begins here.
If this one thing hadn't happened, the main character wouldn't be so important.
You mean the catalyst. If the catalyst of the plot didn't happen, the plot wouldn't happen. Dude, that's freaking crazy. No, seriously. It's so crazy that in the book, what happens after the catalyst is the only reason the story takes place. Do you not enjoy tasting things? True story. My spouse made me start chewing my food more often, and I was shocked at how flavorful things are. I'm 32. When he first started dating, he was sick a lot and told me about a family legend that they were cursed with stomach problems because his ancestor was a samurai who had failed to commit seppuku, and now they all needed to experience the pain that he should have. And then one day, we were having dinner, and I was like, hey, are you not chewing your friggin' food? And then I met his family, and they all just unhinged their jaws like snakes, horking crap down like wide-eyed seagulls at the beach. Anyway, he mostly chews his food now, and the ancestral samurai's curse has left him. Depiction is not automatically glorification, can and should coexist with. Some depiction is glorification, and you need to be able to tell the difference. Please add to that list, apparent glorification in the first 15% of the thing does not constitute real glorification if the remaining 85% is dedicated to suffering the consequences, deconstructing the damage, and changing ways. Because some people around here don't understand how the 3-act structure works. You know, yeah, I will absolutely add this, especially since people keep saying Fight Club is an example of glorification. Genuinely thanks for having one of the few good additions to this post. I remember in my Arabic class, we were going over the alphabet and the teacher was like, there's no P, etc. And this white girl was like, wait, what? But my name's Paige. And my teacher was like, lol, then we'd pronounce it as beige. And she was so offended. I'm crying thinking about it. One of my mom's friends, Hugh, went to France and they had a lot of trouble pronouncing his name because the entire thing was silent. Salut, je m'appelle. Redacted. Lol, when I lived in France, my host family had a friend named Hugh. We saw him and his family a lot. They pronounced it Eeg, and I didn't know until the day before I left France that his name was Hugh. I just thought he had some weird caveman nickname. A CEO leaves for a week, very few people notice. The custodial staff leave for a day, everyone notices. Sanitation and custodial workers deserve far more money and respect than they generally get. I don't think people understand the degree to which society is kept alive by the labor of the least well-regarded professions. If sewage technicians and sanitation workers and their expertise and knowledge were to disappear tomorrow, the streets would pile high with bodies in every city. We live in a world where we get to be blessedly ignorant to just how fast, how brutally, and how violently cholera can rip through a community, how many babies it can kill, how many elderly bodies it can devour alive. You've never seen what it's like when typhoid takes root. Oh, but we have modern medicine. If you don't have clean drinking water and a way to dispose of your urine and crap and trash, you are going to friggin' die. No if or but or maybe. You are dead, and so are half the people you know. Did you guys hear about that intern fired from that law firm because she bit like 10 people? I'm kinda obsessed with her. God, I wish there was footage. The bites were not in an aggressive we're beefing way, but rather a faux quirky manic pixie dream girl crossed with a Donner Party vibe, the outlet reported. Need her URL. This had been going on for months, by the way. Apparently people started wearing long sleeves to work to protect themselves. I must locate this building full of lawyers that will let you bite them for months on end. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm more surprised about the coworkers that just did nothing? We recently made a Discord server for people who do drama at my school, and a cis guy IRL has randomly decided to one-sided beef with me, so I'm having a conversation when he rolls up and randomly pings me saying he wants more pronouns than me, and I'm like, well, this isn't hurting anyone, maybe he'll do some introspection. So he tells me in addition to he, him, he'd also like they, them, it, its, and the other role. Since I don't have they, them, he would therefore have more pronouns than me, so I congratulate him. But then I point out what that other means. I have an en.pronouns linked on my Discord with my neopronouns written down. I show him this. I explain what neopronouns are. He then proceeds to copy and paste a list of 40 sets of neopronouns, just to have more than me. At no point did I care about this hallucinated conflict, so I tell him he wins. It's funny how we watched younger generations' attitudes towards work shift so rapidly over the last few years. When everyone started realizing with low pay and high cost of living and no pensions or benefits, the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze. That literally every media outlet started pushing articles on why job hopping and quiet quitting, i.e. doing your job and going home, is bad, and how the push for return to office is good actually. And we're having none of it because billionaires were buying mega yachts and private jets while we were getting evicted from our homes with skyrocketing rents. It's a weird dichotomy where society insists you have to work to eat, but you bust your butt over a grill 40 plus hours a week and you can't afford the food you cook. And meanwhile, some CEOs are gutting Sears and Toys R Us and Red Lobster and getting rewarded millions for destroying perfectly functional businesses. This is what the world considers valuable work? You'll forgive me if I'm skeptical of the whole arrangement. Today I learned the reason you don't find much Lyme's disease in California is not because we don't have ticks or Lyme disease vectors, but rather because the western fence lizard, if you live anywhere in California, this is your regular garden variety lizard, has adapted a passive immune response that makes their blood lethal to Lyme disease bacteria. Any tick that feeds on one gets its gut cleansed of Lyme disease as a side effect. There's a new vaccine going into phase 3 trials from Valneva and Pfizer, as well as a monoclonal antibody-based prophylactic treatment being researched at UMass. The only cure for this weird disease is the special lizard blood is a Star Trek The Original Series plot that escaped into the real world. Next-gen stealth just dropped. This reminds me of the AI surveillance robot test where a bunch of Marines defeated it by doing stuff like dressing as a tree or just rolling towards the sensor while giggling. 8 Marines placed the robot in the center of a traffic circle and found creative ways to approach it, aiming to get close enough to touch the robot without being detected. 2 of the Marines did somersaults for 300 meters. 2 more hid under a cardboard box, giggling the entire time. Another took branches from a fir tree and walked along, grinning from ear to ear while pretending to be a tree, according to sources from Shar's book. Not one of the 8 was detected. When I was in high school, my dad was speeding like crazy because I was running late to my job at the cemetery, and the cop who pulled him over gave him 3 whole tickets because who the hell goes 95 in a 25? But then, when my dad went to court, the cop didn't show, and so the judge looked over at the charges and just couldn't believe it. He thought the cop must have been so racist that he made it up because who the hell goes 95 in a 25? So my dad got all 3 tickets dismissed because of racism that he didn't even experience because he was in fact going 95 in a 25. To clarify, my dad used to be a cab driver in New York and he also grew up in India, so he just drives like a butthead. It's absolutely wild that people can just work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 50 odd years and not realize that there's something deeply friggin' wrong with it. Daily reminder that there's absolutely nothing normal about being expected to waste a majority of your life at a corporation to survive instead of indulging in better life experiences. In the 1960s, it was a common speculation that by 1980, the typical work week would consist of 4 days, and by the year 2000, we'd be working no more than 3 days a week because of computerization, automation, and better efficiencies in workflow. Guess what happened instead? South Seattle barista responds to customers' threats with a hammer. At what point are we told we're supposed to just wait for it to get worse? For anyone in the reblogs worried about her job status after this, the news report specifies her as the owner and sole employee of this cafe, and she won't fire herself. This man was removed from the property and was made clear to him that if he pursued legally, he would be held accountable for assault, and she would be considered innocent because she was responding to the initial assault. This guy took the L, the entire L that day, so don't be afraid to fight back against abusive customers. They deserve far worse than broken windshields. Tumblr is the funniest social media site to go viral on. On TikTok, people will quit their jobs after going viral once. But on here, not only can any post get 50k notes, but if it does, there's nothing you can do with it. There's no monetization or any transferable skills at all. You just made a funny post and people liked it, and that's the start and end of your career. You could say, I left the stove on with no context, and it might break containment on here, and people start tagging it with ships and kins, and there's no way to delete it forever unless staff gets involved. Your mistake will never go away, but your claim to fame will instantly. It's like, yes, I'm the pineapple werewolf guy, but no one outside of hearing like 5 posts on Reddit will ever know what that sentence means. I could jump on TikTok and no one would know me. No one on YouTube or Facebook. This is my little corner of the internet, and I will die here before I give up that title. And when I do, know I lost nothing in the process. I haven't shaved my legs in a really long time, and while I was babysitting, my skirt edged up a bit, and the 7-year-old I was watching said, "Ew, you should shave that. Hair's not supposed to be there." And I said, "Well, if it's not supposed to be there, then why does it grow there?" And he was really silent for a long time, and then finally said, "Let's watch Sonic the Hedgehog." Tumors grow. Are they supposed to be there? It's called evolution. Just because it's there doesn't mean it's useful or wanted. Local man compares leg hair to cancer. Genuinely thought it was a smart argument. More at 6. I think it's important to acknowledge that the reason why MasterCard/Visa has such a stranglehold on American society is because cash is not the main form of payment in the USA. The predominance of the card has effectively privatized currency. In Japan, one of the reasons why their websites are able to just remove Visa as a payment option instead of changing any of their merchandise, aside from the fact that Visa doesn't have a monopoly here, is because cash payments for online transactions remain an option. Even if you don't have a JCB credit card or PayPay or whatever, you can still pay for your online purchases using cash by taking your barcode to a convenience store. And you can do this for essentially every online vendor, meaning credit card companies can't just impose their moral judgments on your purchases with much repercussion. That post that's like, "Stop writing characters who talk like they're trying to get a good grade in therapy," really blew the door wide open for me about how common it's become for a character's emotional intelligence to not be taken into consideration when writing conflict. I remember the first time I went to therapy, I had such a hard time even identifying what I was feeling, let alone had the language to explain it to someone else. Of course, there are plenty of people who've never been to therapy a day in their life, who are in tune to their emotions, but even they would have some trouble expressing themselves sometimes. You have to take into account there are plenty of people who are uncomfortable expressing themselves, and people who think they're not allowed to feel certain ways. It also makes for more interesting conflict to have characters with different levels of understanding. I love that Jimmy Olsen is exactly the type of photographer Peter Parker pretends to be, just batcrap insane. Whenever someone asks Peter how he took a picture, he's like, "Oh, I climbed a flagpole, totally." And very mortal, normal human Jimmy is like, "See, Clark, it's not that weird." I mean, look at this nut job. The world could be ending, lava on the streets, and Jimmy would be out there photographing away. No powers, no sense of self-preservation, just khakis, a camera, and a dream. I feel like we don't appreciate these days how much the Twin Towers sucked, like design-wise. They were contemporarily hated for just being these giant gray monoliths. Like there probably could have been an easier way to get rid of them, but they probably need to go either way. OP, shut the frig up. Brutalism is friggin' awesome. They're not brutalist though. It was new formalist. They're made of concrete. It doesn't get more brutalist than that. Crying at this. The curb is brutalist. The sidewalk is brutalist. House made of concrete bricks is brutalist. Lamau? Brutalism is when there's concrete. The more conk they crete, the more brutalism it is. People are really trying to defend being on your phone during a movie in the theater. What is going on? The defense of being on your phone in a movie theater is who cares? By your own admission, you should be paying attention to the movie. So why do you care what other people are doing? You're meant to be paying attention to the movie. This post has brought forward a very strange demographic of people who seem unable to comprehend that a tiny beacon of light in a dark room tends to be distracting, and that there is a reason that every movie theater ever has something to tell you to put away your phone during the movie. Fossils of a turtle the size of a car have been unearthed in South America. Carlos for scale. Carlos is a standard unit of measurement. Okay, I looked this up and the description is half true, but not in the way you would think. The fossil is a real example of a Stupendimus geographicus, a prehistorical turtle species that could grow to the size of a small car. The man, however, is misidentified. Carlos is actually Dr. Rodolfo Sanchez, director of the Paleontological Institute and Museum at the University of Zurich in Sweden, who is the team leader of the paleontologists that found the fossil. My biggest issue with the How to Train Your Dragon live action, and just about any live action reboot, is that it seems that the live action adaptations are being made to make the original better. Like, so many people talk about a live action Spider-Verse, a live action Hercules, a live action Prince of Egypt. Don't tick me off! Like, animation is a beautiful work of art, and for some reason, putting real people and CGI in it is supposed to be an upgrade. I'm probably being that friend that's too woke or whatever, but I just think it's so disrespectful to act like something that takes so much time and effort and energy is immediately considered as lower because it's animated. Animation is beautiful, and it is one of the most heartfelt art forms there are, and erasing that for the sake of a cash grab is downright degrading to animation as a medium. Chekhov's cat. If you see a cat in the first act, it will probably be relevant later. Example, Alien, Schrodinger's razor. An unopened box may or may not contain the solution to the story. There's no way to know without opening it. Example, Monk, Occam's gun. The simplest way to kill off a character is to shoot them. Example, Bambi, Chekhov's box. If there's a container introduced in the opening act, it will be opened later. Schrodinger's gun. Treat every gun as if it's loaded, unless you've checked it yourself. Occam's cat. If you hear strange noises at night, it's probably a cat. Laptops are always so much more frig than phones in my experience. A laptop is like a beautiful horse that wants nothing more than to break all of its legs. A decently solid Android phone will act normal. A laptop is a living creature. It has weight to it. A laptop breathes and produces body heat, and it wants to die badly. Mobile phones are not sentient like that, and that's why they don't experience mental illness. A phone problem is like out of storage, sad face, or charging port broke. Laptops will cough weakly as they fade in and out of consciousness. You will hold a laptop in your arms, and it's like, I can't feel my legs. And you tell it, girl, you never had any. Teaching people how to regulate their emotions is crime prevention. It's addiction prevention. It's self-death prevention. It's generational healing. It's how we stop raising adults who explode, implode, or shut down at the first sign of discomfort. Emotional regulation is not just a soft skill. It's survival. It's the foundation of a society where people can disagree without dehumanizing each other, where accountability isn't seen as an attack, and where conflict doesn't always have to mean violence. You want a better world? Start with emotional education. There's something hilarious about how so much subsequent media has positioned vampires and werewolves as like binary opposite entities, and then you read Dracula and realize that wolves are that guy's preferred solution to every problem. You'd say something to Dracula about, yes, werewolves, vampires, great eternal enemies, and he'd just be like, you mean my subcontractors. I'm really enjoying the growing consensus in the notes that there's an eternal rivalry between vampires and werewolves now, entirely because the werewolves, sick of Dracula's bullcrap, have unionized. You have to be able to defend people who are receiving unjust treatment, even if they annoy you, even if you personally find them extremely annoying. You still have to be able to stand up and say, well, that's frigged up. The moral willpower required for, I hate their guts, but my personal ethical standard is no XYZ, and I cannot set the precedent of making an exception for them is immense but important work. Reblogging this again to add that the opposite is also true. You shouldn't be willing to back up the unethical actions of people that you do like. Most ethical dilemmas aren't one-on-one, so this is less common, but when your dear friend says, frigged up thing, am I right? You should be able and willing to say, I don't think that's right. No. One thing about Americans is that they know how to make a friggin' milkshake. I hate the stupid milk consistency crap you get here. Like, if you give me a milkshake, it better be rock friggin' solid. I want that thing thick like concrete. It should tick me off trying to drink it through a straw. I should have to wait for it to thaw. If there's one thing good about this country, it's that we know how to make a goddamn beverage. Americans are so good at making beverage. One of our foundational moments was actually a party involving making beverage. Google Boston Tea Party for more. I am always seized by the fatal American need to have a pretty big drink. I was an extra in this film, and I swear I'm not being delusional. He made intense, prolonged eye contact with me at least 6 or 7 times, and didn't even acknowledge anyone else in the room. I've been thinking about it for about 2 years. I think Robert Pattinson wants to kill me. I believe this wholeheartedly with my full chest. Some actors do this in crowd scenes. They pick an extra to stare at. Jesse Eisenberg did this to me one time. It was really scary, but they're not actually staring at you. They're just finding a fixed point in the room so they don't accidentally look at the camera. In crowd scenes, unfortunately, the fixed point is usually an extra. My high school used to start at 7:30, and I low-key think that was child abuse. For 4 years, I woke up at 6 a.m. at least. I took the bus, and for a year or two, it came between 6:40 and 6:50. Morning showers, or people who put effort into their hair and makeup, probably had to wake up even earlier. Then we all went to school and sat in a health class where our gym teacher told us that teenagers are supposed to get 10 hours of sleep a night, genuinely implying that we were supposed to go to sleep at 8 p.m. if we cared about our health. The dissonance made my head spin. I haven't been to high school for years, and I'm still mad about it. Maybe even more mad. Is this a sandwich? Please discuss. I guess. Look, this is my litmus test. I pretend I am the original Earl of Sandwich. I have asked for non-bread foods to be brought to me inside bread, that I might more easily consume them one-handed while gambling. This does not enable my wretched Regency habits. This is not what I asked for. I do not deign to grace it with the name of my house. This is the most important addition to the sandwich discourse I have ever read. So a hot dog and a hamburger would be a sandwich. I want to see some absolutely dog crap, poor quality Renaissance paintings. I know the masters were great and everything, but not everyone back then could have been a master. I need some frame of reference over here. May I introduce you to The Ricotta Eaters, 1585, a painting I could only describe as ontologically evil. I know it's technically competent, but it just has a horrid aura surrounding it. I don't even care about disrespecting the Italian master Vincenzo Campi anymore. He should have looked at this painting and destroyed it like a sick beast. Technophobes need to apologize for
Just put it in plain English, you stupid machine.
because, well, for one, the decline in accurate error messages in favor of simplicity has contributed to the rise of tech illiteracy, but also because now whenever an app has a net connection error, it will pop up a box saying something like, "Ooh, oopsie, your super duper feed went poo-poo, we'll try again soon," which, having said to me by a corporation, is about 8 million times worse than having to hear the word network. To no one's surprise, our computer is a loser. This website is a self-fulfilling prophecy of mild annoyances. What happens when a country bans spanking? Researchers look at countries that have prohibited corporal punishment for kids. Now a new study looking at 400,000 youths from 88 countries around the world suggests such bans are making a difference in reducing youth violence. It marks the first systemic assessment of whether an association exists between a ban on corporal punishment and the frequency in which adolescents get into fights, for both boys and girls. Professor Elizabeth Gershoff said, "We found spanking linked to more aggression, more delinquent behavior, more mental health problems, worse relationships with parents, and putting the children at higher risk for physical abuse from their parents. People often ask, why didn't you look for positive aspects?" She continued. My answer is, we did, and there were none. We see consistently that the more children are spanked, the more behavioral problems they have in the years ahead. Today, nobody showed up to my 8:15 class. 0 students of about 40. Sitting in the empty room, I email them, trying to disguise my hurt feelings. 2 minutes later, I get a reply. "Professor, we think you might be in the wrong room." So anyway, off I go to live in a hole forever. My wife really wants me to mention that I was sleep deprived because I got up at 4 a.m. to play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends in Australia. Sad professor in a room alone. Students no love me? Why students no love me? All 40 in the other room. Where our beloved professor? Why he not here? He okay? You'll say something as simple as, "No child deserves to be hit," and people will crawl out of the woodwork to explain why they should be allowed to beat a 6-year-old for spilling some water. You'll say, "I think it's weird that adults literally have control over when children are allowed to use the bathroom," and up pops a teacher to say that when they're not shouting at the kids they teach, they're trying to stop them from hiding in the bathrooms. You'll say, "I think children shouldn't be forced to eat food they hate," and here comes someone who feeds their kids plain rice and boiled chicken while eating a nicely seasoned stir fry, claiming that it's okay actually, and kids shouldn't be allowed to taste things. You'll say, "I think kids should have bodily autonomy," and in comes someone who pierced their baby's ears before it was even 24 hours old, frothing at the mouth because their kid wanted a haircut, and that's somehow an insult. Wizard. "I have you trapped in a time loop, smiley face." Me. Loves routines. "Oh darn, whatever shall I do?" Wizard. "You know, the point of the time loop is to have some big revelation and work on yourself, not to keep attempting to redo all your awkward moments and small talk conversations." Me. On day 33 of my time loop. Shut the frig up. I'm going back to the coffee shop again today, and when the barista tells me to enjoy my drink, this time I am not going to say "you too." Me. Day 47. And thanks, you too. Frig, not again. Wizard. "All right, I'm breaking the time loop. I can't keep watching this anymore." The time loop doesn't break. Wizard. Frig. Me to the wizard on day 48 of our time loop.
We're done when I say we're done.
I do think a lot of implausible medieval plot devices make more sense when considering the fact that these people simply did not have glasses. Like the King Arthur problem of how were these people always accidentally sleeping with the wrong person? Well, 1, no glasses, 2, no lights and candles are so expensive, 3, royal couples didn't even sleep in the same bed a lot of the time anyway, 4, arranged marriage, how much do you really know your spouse anyway? Maybe not very well a lot of the time. 5, people are drinking a lot, I don't know, maybe not as absurd as one might think. This post is brought to you by the one time I woke up at a sleepover and realized that without my glasses, I could not distinguish one friend from the other. Haunting. All of Arthurian literature was unlocked to me at that moment. Reasons why computer problems seem to mysteriously vanish as soon as a technician shows up. You were spacing out and skipping a step somewhere without realizing it, and you can't reproduce it when you try to demonstrate it because now you're paying attention to what you're doing. It's an intermittent electrical connection fault that's being aggravated by movement/vibrations in your desk. You need to check your cables. The act of explaining the problem to someone caused you to figure out what you were doing wrong. The real cause of the problem was somewhere upstream of your terminal device. For example, at the network service provider, and it got fixed at the source while you were waiting. Your computer is in a location with poor airflow and is overheating. Waiting for the technician to arrive gave it a chance to cool off. Despite all appearances to the contrary, modern computers actually have very good fault recovery, and most minor problems will sort themselves out on their own if you give it a minute. Magic! The computer doesn't respect you. Next time, try firm eye contact to establish dominance. A TikToker who built a following of 2.5 million by turning dolls into viral drama videos is now being sued by the toy company behind them. The Sylvanian Drama Channel received a lawsuit claiming they've caused irreparable injury to the brand. So frigged up, like actually. I think they should countersue. For context, the reason they're being sued is not because they're making videos in general. It's because they were taking sponsorships, doing paid advertising, and using Calico Critters/Sylvanian Family to do the endorsements, which does violate copyright. It sucks, but them's the rules. If your characters are furries, consider giving some love to animals besides foxes, cats, and wolves. One thing I didn't expect from my new world-building book is the author, roughly my dad's age, including his opinions on furries. I invented an alien race once that used different pronouns on land and underwater. They were amphibians, and had the inclusive/exclusive and proximate/obviative distinctions. They also had a pronoun for group minds, and pronouns for each of their 3 genders. The complete list was impressive. I'm liking this guy more and more. In the future, possibly anything goes. In my sci-fi world, the Incatina, gender changes are routine, which makes nonsense out of most present-day moralisms and even earnest debates about evolutionary psychology. But why stop there? It's easy to imagine modified bodies allowing new genders, new coitus acts, and new perversions. I have a new favorite author. You can go up to people in real life and ask them for rumors like in Oblivion, and they'll actually respond. Did this crap in 2015 when I went to the Pacific Northwest, and that crap was literally friggin' Oblivion. I walked into a beer bar and asked some dude, "What rumors have you heard?" And he told me about a dude who went missing hiking to a nearby volcano. Like, what the frig? That's a side quest. You're supposed to go find him, or at least find his environmental storytelling skeleton, along with a unique weapon or piece of armor.